Are you ready, Ninja Babe?
Are you ready to face your fears?
To ignite your passion
and break through your limitations? Are you ready to get out of your comfort zone?
And go after your dreams with unstoppable force?
It's all happening here
on the Ninjababes podcast.
The place where women spill it all about self-confidence,
courage,
and body image.
This is where we show our strength.
This is the sisterhood.
The sisterhood.
The sisterhood.
The sisterhood.
Where girls gather
to empower themselves
and each other.
Get ready to get rocked.
Because this is where you come
to be encouraged
and be transformed in order to live out your full potential.
Be proud of yourself, Ninja Babe.
Now let's get after it. I'm here with Jamie Birds Ross. That is your real name, right? Jamie Birds Ross?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you for that clarification for the world. Welcome to the Ninjababes podcast. I'm really excited to have you on. It's been a long time. I think the last time we chatted on the podcast, not in real life, but on the podcast, was right after A&W 10.
Yeah, I know. That's like why I kind of wanted to do this. I was like, man, like the first time we talked on the podcast, I was like basically an infant fresh out the womb and I had like no experience in anything. So now I feel like I have a little bit more insight and experience to like talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've competed now on A&W 10 and 11, making it onto City Finals. Woo, woo. We're like twinsies from different cities.
I know. I've always thought about that. Like, I feel like we've placed almost the exact same every single year we've competed.
That's so wild.
I love it.
But it's really true. Except for you got to do UNX this year and I did not because my arm was healing and mending.
A limp arm.
My limp arm. Yeah, it's better now. But it feels good. Side note, because people ask me all the time, it does feel very good. I'm still working on balancing the strength for my left and right side because after surgery, it takes a lot of effort to like get all your muscle back. And I can tell that my right side is still stronger than my left. So I'm trying to work on that. But besides that, it feels secure. It's not going to like slip on out anytime soon or never. It's never happening.
So like when you're training and stuff, are you like scared? Do you like train cautiously or is it like kind of back to normal training for you?
I'm still training cautiously. Mostly I would say my warm-ups are literally 30 minutes long. Because I really, really do a lot of specific like rotator cuff work with bands, different engagement movements to really make sure everything is engaging properly. Because I realized that even before the injury happened that I was totally compensating with different muscle groups and just wasn't training as smart as I could have. And I think that was one of like the domino effect causes of the dislocation, among a few other things. But so now it's not so much that I'm scared. It's more so that I'm trying to really pay attention to make sure that I'm warming up properly and really using all of my muscles properly as I'm doing all the movements. And so I'm definitely training differently. I'm not just like going and doing whatever's fun in the moment. Like it's still fun, but I'm saying like I'm trying to really think about framing my workouts differently. Like today, for example, I was just focusing on laches and like swinging movements and then lower body agility, whereas other days I'm just going to focus on grip and climbing and stuff like that. And then another day I'm only going to be doing like overhead pushing and like handstand holds and different like pushes overhead. And then another day will be like other types of pushing, like push-ups and stuff. So it's just like I'm trying to really make sure I hit all my bases, which before I don't think I was.
I feel like that has played a role in a lot of my injuries too. I'm not at the point where like I feel like I'm going to hurt myself, but I'm definitely somebody who just jumps straight into doing big giant laches. And then I'm like, wow, why does my whole body hurt? And it's because I don't warm up properly or engage any of the right muscles. And I'm like trying to get better at it. And like, but you know, I'm still a fetus kind of, so I'm learning.
Yeah, maybe in another like 2 years, I'll have you back on the podcast and you'll be like,
yeah, and then I'll be talking about how like I dislocated my shoulder and it took me a whole year to heal and all that stuff because I was an idiot.
No, that's not true. It's like my life's mission now to help educate ninjas about injury prevention because I feel like I didn't really know as much as I should have starting a ninja. And I think a lot of other people don't realize like body mechanics and like all this stuff about how to train in a smart fashion in order to like be able to be a ninja for a long time. I think like too many of us just go after it like way too hard too soon and like hurt ourselves. But
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like that's where a lot of my weightlifting comes in, is that like when I feel like I'm overdoing it with ninja, then I just like stop doing ninja and I just like go to weightlifting for a while. And then it's a good way to like give my body a break, I guess.
Yeah. That's some wisdom there, birds.
Oh, you know, I'm like an owl now. I'm like an owl bird with all my wisdom.
Yep. I was just joking to Jamie before we started recording that she was a vulture because she told me she was hunched over her computer to like get into the microphone.
So we're just gonna use bird analogies this entire podcast to describe my emotions and feelings.
Yep. Well, a little birdie told me, aka you, told me that you had much of a story that you wanted to share today. So definitely, I'd love to have you jump in. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics within the mental health world and just within our world. Everyone has a brain and everyone has mindset and has different experiences in life, and all these things can help us, or they can sometimes like work against us in our own ways. And so it's important to talk about mental health, talk about mindset, talk about some of the warning signs that of changes in mood, changes in how it's affecting your behavior, all these things, just so that we can be the most prepared that we can to recognize when we need to take a step back, work on our own mental health and like self-care and all these things. So Jamie, why don't you tell us about more about yourself and just take it away. Tell us your story.
So I was kind of thinking about where I wanted to start all of this, and I guess it's all been a domino effect. So I guess I'll just start back at the beginning of like how I started with Ninja Warrior and like why I started. And basically it was kind of like everybody else's story. I mean, I was a rock climber for a while and I had good upper body strength, and I went online and I saw cool ninja videos and I was like, I can do that. I'm strong. And then I went to a gym and I got the crap beat out of me and I couldn't do anything and I was pathetic. And then I met a whole bunch of friends that did it too. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I want to do this. And then I just kind of started just training. And I actually started my ninja training like a month before I competed on my first season. Like I was only training for like a month before I competed.
That's so wild.
I know. So I wasn't even expecting to get the call. I submitted with like all of my powerlifting videos, and then I like sent all of that in, and then I was like, oh, they're not going to call me. I'm not a ninja. And then they called me and I was like, oh, I have 3 weeks to prepare. so then I went on my first season and I didn't do as terrible as I thought I was going to do. And I made it to city finals. And I remember the one thing that I always remember from my city finals run, I made it to the 5th obstacle. And like, for me, I was like so psyched to get there. Like I was so happy to just make it that far. I like popped out of the water with the biggest smile on my face and I was like waving at everyone. And when I got out, everyone's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that you fell. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That was awesome. So that was like my first experience. And then I was kind of hooked from there. And then, you know, training all the time. And I got super into it. And then I started working at ninja gyms. Then I became a ninja coach and kept up rock climbing. And I just feel like it's kind of been a domino of getting into this world and meeting everybody. And, you know, like the ninja community is so welcoming and everybody's there for you, like no matter what. And I guess that's like kind of the leeway into my next part of the story with my mental health is I was kind of experiencing these signs of anxiety and like discomfort, and I would like wake up in the middle of the night like in terror, and I'd be so afraid of everything and I didn't know why, and I just ignored it for so long. And like that was probably the worst thing I could have possibly done because it just got worse and worse and worse. And I feel like I definitely relied on all of my friends in the ninja community and like my family, and like I relied on people so much that it was just getting to the point where I didn't rely on myself at all. Like I was only relying on other people. And yeah.
I just kind of want to pause you right there because I think that's such a key part of all of this. And just, you know, if we break it apart for a second, relying on your friends or your family isn't inherently like a bad thing, right?
No.
So right, we need each other, we need friends, we need our community. But again, to your point, you were relying on them more so than you were believing or relying on yourself. So could you, even as you go into the next part, like just explain more of how that looked like, or how looking back you realized why that was a problem?
That's like a huge part of a huge part of my story is relying on people. And so I guess this all pretty much started, it escalated, I would say, last year in Vegas. I went through like a complete mental collapse, and a lot of people in the ninja community, like I met these people while I was in Vegas because, I mean, we were all there, like the entire community was there. And I was like going through this mental collapse in front of everybody, and like they were all witnessing it and seeing it. And I would be on set and I would just be like bawling my eyes out. And like, there were so many people in the ninja community that I got so close to, like just from them just being there for me when I didn't have anybody else. And I had a bunch of really close friends. And like I said, I didn't believe in myself or rely on myself at all. I seriously tried to put all of my weight on everybody else. And like, there's a point where relying on people isn't a bad thing. But when it gets to the point where all you're doing is relying on other people to provide you happiness, like you're never going to get anything from that. Like other people can't bring you happiness. Like that comes from within yourself.
Right. And I think that is like the key distinction. It's like I can't every day wake up and wait until somebody says, "Oh, Cara, you're beautiful," or "Cara, I'm so proud of you because you are smart," or "because you are this, you are that." If I'm just waiting for that validation or like that affirmation every day, I might never get it. So then what happens?
Exactly. Like, and that's probably for like 2 whole months. I would need to be talking to somebody 24 hours a day. Like, I even had my friends sleep on the phone with me because I was afraid that I'd be by myself at night. Like, I could not be by myself at any point during the day. And like, if I felt like I was worthless, I would just text my friends and be like, am I worth something? Like, do you still like me? Like, and I was looking for all this validation from other people. And like, there were times when I wouldn't get it and I would just have a breakdown. Like, I was so mentally unstable for like 2 months of my life that I literally thought that if people weren't validating me 24/7, that I wasn't worth anything.
Wow. Yeah. How did you, I mean, I know you want to, there's like so much to your story. So then right away, all my questions are like, how did you ever get your mind out of that? Or like, did you find that friends were willing to do that to like help validate you and do those things? Or were friends like, hey, Jamie, like something's going on, you need to figure this out? Like, what was their reaction?
Okay, so this is kind of a split in the story where some friendships got so strong from it because they were there for me 24/7 whenever I needed them. And when I got out of it, they were there for me. But then there were other friends where I was leaning on them so much and they weren't strong enough to carry me. Like they were having problems on their own and I was putting all my weight on them. And it got to the point where like, they were like, I can't carry you and myself at the same time. And it just got to the point where there was so much pressure on them that like I lost friends in the process. And I mean, thankfully I'm good with them now, like now that I've kind of gotten out of that mindset, but it's not fair to put all of your happiness and all of your problems on somebody else that might not even be in like the mental state to even carry that kind of burden, you know? Like it's okay to rely on people if they're willing to help you, but you can't just throw all of your issues on somebody if they're having problems of your own, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, if you never learn your own self-worth or understand your own identity in the deep sense of knowing your own worth and understanding your own value, it's like you're constantly going to be, if you're looking at it as like, you know, a cup that's full, like you're constantly going to be running out and going empty because you're looking for other people to fill it.
Exactly. And so that went on for so long and like it wasn't getting better. And I like got to the point where I was like, what is it going to take? Like, what is it going to take for me to finally feel like better? And there was nothing. Like I'd even go to the doctors or I'd go to a psychologist or I'd go to the therapist and I'd be like, I just want to feel better. And they're like, you can't just do that. You can't just feel better. You have to work on it. And I would say it took me hitting absolute rock bottom to finally pick myself up. And for me, I've talked about this on my Instagram sometimes, but last summer, I actually attempted to take my own life. I tried to commit suicide. And that was rock bottom for me.
Yeah.
Like hard to talk about, but like it took me, and I never want anybody to reach that point to like they feel like they need to hit rock bottom before they find help, because that should never be the case. But for me, it took me hitting that rock bottom for me to finally like look at myself and be like, is it just going to be this painful until I die? Like, am I just going to be this miserable forever until I'm like, and it was like, I don't want to be miserable anymore. And so I need to do something about it. And I think it took me that, like, it's such a weird thing, because mental health is like, it's just that, it's mental. Like, you can be sad and miserable and depressed, but you can also like take the steps to like fix that, and you can take the steps to even try to like lessen the burden on you. And for me, that was, I guess, taking steps into like medication and therapy, and even just trying to force myself to do things that I didn't want to do, like go to the gym. Like, I lost my motivation for like 8 months to do anything. And I was like, all right, I can't just be a sack of birds forever. So I need to get my butt up and go do something. And like, even if I would just be at the gym and be miserable, at least I'm like up doing something. And it took like little steps like that, where I would just force myself out of the house, and I'd force myself to go hang out with friends. And even if I wasn't having a good time, it's better than just, sitting in my bedroom by myself at my parents' house and crying. So yeah, I guess it just took like little steps like that. It wasn't a change overnight. Like, nothing just flipped the switch and I was like, oh, I'm healed. I'm all better. Like, no more mental health and problems. It's all fine now. It was like these little tiny steps. It would just be like, I'd be miserable to do something, and then the next day it was a little bit less miserable, and the next day it was like slightly less miserable, and it just like kind of got better from there. And I also felt like I was stuck, because I was living in Minnesota at the time, and I felt like I wasn't going to school out there, and I was working at the gym, and I just wasn't really doing much, and I didn't really have a direction. And I knew that I didn't want to be in Minnesota forever, but I was too scared to like make the leap and go somewhere else. And then eventually I just kind of like, I was like, okay, so I'm never going to feel better if I just feel like I'm stuck in one place forever for the rest of my life. So I need to do something. And then that's when I made the decision to move to Florida.
Do you feel like there were people or friends in your life who were trying to push you to make changes like that, and you were just like, no? Or do you feel like you really needed to hit your own rock bottom to realize for yourself like why you needed to make changes?
I definitely had like friends steering me in the right direction, and my family steering me in the right direction. But I also really think that people can tell you to do anything, but you're not going to take their advice unless you want to do it. It's like, I could tell somebody that's overweight a million times, you need to go to the gym, you need to eat healthy, but unless they want to do it for themselves, they're never going to do it.
Right.
Yeah. And so for me, it was like, these people were pushing me in that direction, like, take these steps, go to school, like, move out of Minnesota. And I just wasn't ready at the time. But then when I felt like I was ready, and this is something that, I need to do for myself, then I did it, and I made the move. And before I did, I was so nervous, because like, I don't have any family out here. I didn't have any friends out here. I didn't know anybody. And it was just like a totally different world. And I was like so nervous, because, back in Minnesota, I had all my friends and family, and I thought like, oh, if I'm all sad, then who am I going to talk to? And, anxiety up the butt. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like making the move did anything besides just changing your environment, obviously, if you're moving to another state and like you just described, but do you think it changed anything in your confidence or your self-esteem to just even realize like, oh, I actually did it. I actually moved. Like, did that like trigger anything?
Yes, 100%. It was like, as soon as I moved here and like settled in and like started working and started going to school and had some friends, I literally feel like I turned into a brand new person. It's like, I did this on my own. I moved out here on my own. I live in my own apartment. I don't have any roommates. I got a dog by myself. Like, I felt like I was doing all of these things by myself. And it gave me the confidence 100% to feel like I did this. Like, I moved across the country all by myself. Like, I can do anything.
That's super cool to hear.
And honestly, like, for me, I'm looking at her right now, but my dog, I adopted a dog the day that I moved down here. I got her. And like, it is like, seriously, it has been like life-changing. I've never owned a pet like this where I feel like they're my whole world. Like, I don't know, they're my whole life. Like, I feel like when I didn't have anything to do, I was like, okay, well, I got to get up and take her out on a walk. And it was like, I could be miserable in bed all day, but I didn't have this other creature to take care of. And like, it gave me another sense of like, I have other purposes in this life besides myself. And I'm never going to be able to fulfill those purposes and like do all these things unless I take care of other people. And I like, it's not just about me, you know?
Yeah, totally. Do you feel like that's played into even your decisions for school? Because do you want to tell us what profession you're going into?
Right now I am in the diagnostic medical sonography program at Kaiser, which is basically a fancy word for diagnostic ultrasound. So I'm going into hopefully work in an OR or in a hospital or emergency room or something and be able to, you know, scan people's organs and make sure they're all good and that kind of stuff. And it's like really hard, but I feel like at the same time, it also gives me something to think about other than myself. Like, I feel like if you're just sitting and wallowing in yourself 24/7, then you're going to think about all the things that are wrong in your life. But, you know, if you're keeping yourself busy, then it gives you more purpose, like when you're busy to like do other things. And, you know, like I really love it. Like I'm only a couple months in it, but I'm so excited to like go to school every day. And like, even though it's boring classes, like right now I'm in physics and I'm like, this sucks, but like, it's still fun to learn about, you know?
Yeah, totally. I have a friend who went to school for that, and I used to go in to be like her, I don't want to call it a model, like a practice person she would scan my organs. So so that was fun. I feel like that's something great to think about is like you're going to school for something that will eventually help so many other people. And it's like something that's a tool that's useful, that's going to help save somebody's life in the future. And that's really cool to think about. Oh, just a sec. It's summer. Warmer months are here. Do you have a refreshing drink to keep you hydrated during your workouts? Blending up some Propeller Life amino acids with ice before a workout is the perfect way to hydrate. It's what I've been doing in these warmer days, and I love it. It's the best way to fuel up before getting into a sweaty summer workout. Then, after I've worked hard and need to refuel for optimal gains, I drink Propeller Life protein. It's non-GMO, tastes great in chocolate or vanilla, and its whey is from grass-fed cows with no additives or chemicals. I know I'm getting great nutrition and refueling the way that my body needs. Ninjababes, Propeller Life has the drinks for you. And best of all, you can use code Ninjababes, all caps, for 10% off your order, free shipping, and it's a way to support the Ninjababes podcast. So go ahead and see all the whey and vegan options for pre-workout, energy, amino acids, and protein at propellerlife.com. The link is in the show notes. So apart from going to school, apart from thinking about your future in that way, are there ways that you've found self-worth and self-respect now, even if you weren't going to school?
I think I found my self-worth in realizing that nobody else can control my emotions. Like somebody could look me in the eyes and be like, you're worthless, you're pathetic, like you can't do anything, but they don't hold that kind of power. Like nobody else can tell me what I'm worth. Nobody else can like tell me that I'm not worth anything or that I'm not good enough. Like I'm the only person that gets to determine that. And I'm the only person that gets to determine that I'm worth something and I'm beautiful and I'm strong and I'm smart. And like, you can't let people and their negativity like bring you down. You need to, you know, be positive for yourself and surround yourself with positive people.
I think that's such an incredible distinction to realize. And even to be able to, like, sometimes I think about it like somebody's stench. Like if you smell this is a weird analogy, but if you smell someone who smells really bad and it's like you smell them coming, like you smell them, sometimes it's like you involuntarily smell them, right? Because you can't really stop it. So it's like if you're constantly in that environment, like you're gonna feel sick to your stomach, like it's gonna be really nasty. But if you're in a place where, you know, this is a weird analogy again, but if you're in a place where like you're like smelling flowers, you're like smelling good things, like good food, whatever. Some people like the smell of gasoline. It's like you're going to love your environment, love the place that you're in. So it's the same with your friends and the people around you. Like, are you people, you know, you hear people say like, are you surrounding yourself with like toxic people? It's like, it's that concept of, are you with people who are helping to empower you and helping to support who you believe yourself to be, or are they doing the opposite and like tearing down and making it harder for you to believe the best in yourself, you know?
Yeah, that's like so true, because it was such a weird concept, like being surrounded by people who you didn't feel like they had your best interest in mind, and you always had to watch your back. And like, then when you meet a group of people, or you meet somebody that you know is going to be there for you no matter what, and you know that they have your best interest in mind and they just want you to succeed, like it's such a totally different feeling. Like, you're either watching your back or watching what that person does and you don't trust them, or you trust somebody with your whole heart. And like, you never want to feel like you're holding a part of you back, and you never want to feel like you're holding yourself in, or you're not being true to yourself. Like, you don't want to surround yourself with people like that. You want to surround yourself with people you can be yourself around, and like be happy around, and tell your jokes and they're going to think it's funny, and that kind of stuff. You just want to surround yourself with people who have similar mindsets than you.
Definitely. I think your jokes are funny.
Thanks. Me too.
So do you feel like you have found that in Ninja, or like in the community that you're in now?
I would say 99% of my friends are ninjas. So yes, I would say Ninja and the community is like a huge part of my life, because pretty much every single one of my friends that I have right now, I've met through Ninja. So without this community and like without getting involved in this, like I would not be at the place that I am right now, and I would not have the amazing friends that I have right now. Like, this community has just like been so like incredible. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, everybody's just so amazing and welcoming, and they're all, motivated, and they all want to be the best that they can be, and they all want to like do their best. And you just don't find a group like that very often.
That's very true. That's also basically why everyone loves Ninja. But yeah, it's so true. Going back to what you were just saying, like having those friends and those people in your life who truly have your best interest in mind. Sometimes there's like, tough love in that. If someone's like, Jamie, I see you going this way and I love you and I want the best for you. I want to help you. Like, I think this might not be a good outcome. Like, I feel like, as you mentioned earlier, there might have been friends or family in your life who was trying to push you in like a healthier, like a better mental health area of like, you need to move. You should maybe try to do this or that. Maybe you should see a therapist, or like different things. This is a really long question. Sorry. So all that to say, do you feel like now looking back, maybe there were friends who were not trying to have your best interest in mind, and that led to situations of like manipulation, or just something that they clearly, a person or a group just was not helping you? You know what I mean? How did you deal with that, and how did you recognize it in a way to like get out of it?
I think that the term manipulation can be used in a lot of different ways, because sometimes you don't even know what they're manipulating you into wanting. Like, you don't even know what they want you to do, and like you just kind of go along with it because you trust that person, and you want to make that person happy. And even if they're steering you in the wrong direction and they're saying like, I feel like you should think this way, or I feel like you should believe this, and you're like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I actually believe that. And I don't know if that actually happened. And it kind of makes you question your own sanity to an extent. Like, wow, like, did that event even actually happen? Like, am I just imagining that? Or, like, am I crazy? And then like, you don't want to surround yourself with people who make you question like your own reality. And like, that's where I think manipulation comes in, is that I don't think the person that's doing it for the most part is doing it like with the intent to hurt you. They just don't understand your reality, and it's just two different realities like clashing. And sometimes like you can, work through it and talk about it and like try to understand another person's reality. But if that person is steering you in a direction that you feel like isn't benefiting you in any way, then there's no point in, staying in that. Like, you want to surround yourself with people who want to support you and want to understand you and want to be there no matter what. I mean, I feel like everybody in their life makes mistakes, and everybody takes the wrong path here and there, and everybody like like doesn't do the right thing or doesn't do what they're supposed to do. But people who are really there for you in the long haul, like people who really appreciate you, they'll try to steer you in the right direction, and they'll try to understand your reality, because it's true. Like everybody has a different reality. Like I can see something one way and you're looking at it from a totally different angle, but it's the same thing. But we just believe that it's two completely different things,
Yeah, when you say reality, are you mostly referring to like someone's perspective?
Yes, like definitely somebody's perspective on events that happen. Like, I don't know, does that make sense? I feel like I'm kind of blabbing a little bit.
No, it makes sense. I just wanted to clarify. I think sometimes when we talk about like our own realities, it's like everyone does definitely have their own perspective and their own story and their own unique experience, which is true to them. But I think there's also, the validity of like friends seeing somebody like going down a path that's might lead to destruction or like might not lead to, like we were talking about before, like that best interest. So I definitely think there's a difference between like someone not agreeing with you for the sense of like trying to help you come to a more positive outcome versus somebody just being like, oh, that's what you think, you want to go like drive your car off a cliff, like that's what you think, great.
Yeah. There's definitely people that just want destruction for you and people who just want to see you fail. And like those people are totally different than like those are just people who don't want you to succeed and they don't want you to be happy. And you should just never be around anybody. Like there's just no point in being around people like that. But I feel like sometimes there's toxic situations in friendships and like family members and stuff like that where you don't know that they're not steering you in the right direction. You just trust that person and you want to believe in the best in that person. But, sometimes you have to look at your own perspective and realize that, wow, this person really does care for me, but they don't have my best interest in mind. Like I need to recognize that and find people who do have my best interest in mind.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes those lines can be like blurred or skewed when it can feel like one thing and then we realize something else. How do you feel like you have come to like trust people now in a different way? Now that, you had mentioned realizing that you can't completely rely on other people, you need to find your own value, your own self-worth. But how do you balance it then with still trusting and having friends that you can trust, but not like completely relying on them in the sense of like finding your own value?
I think that comes into the point where you just need to see who has your best interest in mind. And if you meet somebody or you meet your friends and you realize that, this person really does want me to succeed and what I'm going to believe what they're telling me. And if they think that this is the best choice for me, then, I'm going to trust them and I'm going to go down that path. And it takes a lot of self reflection to get to that point where you know when to not trust somebody and when they have your best interest in mind. Because you're right, the line is really blurred and sometimes you might not know, but you need to be able to recognize in yourself, like you need to be able to decipher what's right and what's wrong and take that path for yourself. Even if somebody that you do trust is telling you something that you don't believe is right, then you can like stand up for yourself and be like, you know what, like you said that, I trust you, but I think that this could be, a better solution to that. Or I think we could, come up with something different. And, nobody's always right all the time. So you can trust people, but you should always, watch out for what your best interest is and, watch out for their best interest too and put your input in, but also recognize that everybody's going to make their own choices. Like you can give people your input as much as you want, but at the end of the day, everyone's just going to make their own choice that's best for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in our own community of Ninja and Ninjababes and, Ninja as a whole, I feel like something that we value is respecting one another, being a community that really like has each other's backs in like a positive and like protective way. Like we want to support one another and just trying to understand each other's differences, but realize that we have this common goal of loving health and fitness, like loving doing ninja, loving having fun and kind of being like a little bit crazy. And so,
yeah, actually that's a really good, like analogy for that actually is like everybody in the ninja community their training is so different. Like everybody trains so different and thinks so different and trains this way. And somebody else is like, well, I think this way is the best way to train. And neither one is wrong. Like there's no wrong way to train, but everyone just has a different way to get there. And we all have the same end goal, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's like knowing those values, like knowing what your personal values really are down deep. And then when you find yourself in those situations of, does this person have my best interest in mind, or something about this relationship feels off and I'm not sure why or whatever, it's like running those through your values of, do I feel like I'm receiving respect? Am I receiving, that a love that is caring for me and like wanting to see me succeed and all these things. And I think that's how we do it in Ninja as well. It's like we talk about preserving this community of not promoting like cutthroat competition, right? We always talk about we do compete, we are competitive, but we want to see each other succeed. So it's like I've seen even how like the OG generations of ninjas who've gone before me in like seasons 1 and 2, like way back in the day. Like I've heard them literally talk about this of like preserving this community of we are here for each other. And so I think it just kind of goes along the same lines of if it, like knowing your values, like knowing what you want to see happen in your life and then preserving that. So if there are people that don't line up with those values, distancing yourself, if it's a kind of relationship that you if it's I've talked about this before in the podcast. If it's like your mom or dad, obviously there can be boundaries, but like if they're a family member that you want to have a relationship with, you're not just going to like never speak to them again unless that's the kind of like if you're in a really dangerous situation, that's one thing. But if it's a friend that you realize like this friend is not really actually my friend because of the way that they're treating me, there's someone that doesn't have to be in your life.
That's where your own perception comes into play, is that like you need to be able to realize that like each person is going to have a different, like they're going to treat you different and they're going to want different things for you. And you need to be able to point out like this person is good for me and this person is going to do good for me and they're going to be there for me. And like, you just need to be able to recognize that.
I'm talking about some heavy stuff here today on the podcast, Jamie Birds. um, Is there anything else to your story that you want to share, or even just other advice for Ninja Babes who are listening today of just like anything else that's coming to your mind?
I think what I would tell people is that you can only do so much. And if you feel like you're in a spot in your life where you feel stuck or you feel like there's bad people in your life, there's always something that you can do to change it. And just taking little tiny steps to get there is probably the best thing you can do for yourself, is just taking the right steps in the right direction.
Yeah. What advice would you have for anyone who's listening who might be struggling with depression or any like suicidal ideation, like anything that feels like they're in a dark place and they don't want to be there?
I would say reach out to somebody right away, because for me, it was a different type of depression where I was constantly reaching out to people. But the more I've talked to people, the more I've realized that people normally do the exact opposite. They completely shelter themselves off from family and friends, and they just close themselves off to the world. And that's probably the worst thing that you can do. Like, always reach out to somebody, because always there's going to be somebody that's willing to listen, like whether that's your parents or your friends or your therapist, or even if you don't feel like there's anybody to talk to, just talk to your cat or your pet bird, or I don't know. And, like just talk about it and reach out to other people and try to find people with similar stories. And my way of getting out of it isn't going to work for like anyone else, or it might not be the steps that somebody else needs to take to get out of it. And I would just say, find what works for you. And if you're in a really dark place, just find one thing that makes you happy and do it. And if it doesn't make you happy anymore, then find something else to do. And even if there's only 2 minutes of a day of something that brings you joy, then just do that 2 minutes and go to bed. And, don't think about it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just do what you can.
I appreciate you sharing your story and what you've experienced. And it's great to talk to you like now, having learned so much and being in such a different place, because I've known you for a long time, or like my whole ninja life, I feel like, or like most of it. And it's cool to see how your experience has changed and just sort of like this new understanding of yourself that you have, which is really cool to hear.
you know, even if this reaches one person and they feel like, man, I feel that same way, like, and it gives them some sort of hope that, wow, maybe I'll feel better in the future because she has, then, you know, this whole thing was worth it.
Definitely. I totally agree. Where can people find you on social media and in other places if they haven't found you yet?
You can find me on Instagram at JamieRoss8, and that's pretty much my only social media. Or you can, you know, wave at me on the street.
I like to wave at you on the street when I'm around.
I'll be flying all over the country like a bird.
Do you have a favorite bird?
Ooh, a peacock.
Ooh. I didn't expect you to say that.
They're pretty much useless as a bird because they can't fly, but, you know, they're pretty.
They're very unique, just like you, Jamie Ross.
Unique but useless.
No.
That's the key.
Oh, well, on that note.
What's your favorite bird?
My favorite bird? Let me think about that for a second. I really like parrots because they're so colorful. If I had to pick like a certain one, I'm not sure what the answer would be, but in general, I really like parrots. I don't think I'm well versed enough in the world of parrots to pick just one, but I like all their colors and their sounds.
I thought you were gonna say I was your favorite bird.
Oh no! I totally answered that
I tricked you.
I'm gonna make the cover of this episode you with like a beak. I hope you're not offended.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, whatever you want to do. I'm fine with it. Be strong. Be you. Be a ninja bird. Squawk, squawk.
Squawk, squawk.